Hi, welcome to Trilogy Sanctuary. My name is Gabrielle, and I will be guiding you through a 45-minute restorative yoga class for back pain. Within these modern times, we spend most of our time standing, walking, sitting, and awkwardly using our body, not residing in the natural curvature of our spine. So in result of the way in which we habitually move all day, our spine gets pulled out of its natural alignment. For example, just sitting at a desk, right? Standing, leaning side to side, sitting in your car, the tilt of your hips. So the way from our pelvic tilt all the way up through the natural curvature of our spine to the weight of our head, there's a lot of weight that pulls on the muscles of the back, especially the low back. So the way in which you tilt your pelvis, the way in which you hold your spine, all of that affects the muscles of the low back. And seemingly so, if our low belly, if our abdominal muscles, our low abdominal muscles get weak, then that also would be something that would affect our low back. And so what do we have? We have chronic low back pain, which probably 90% of us will at some point in our life experience or live with. And so these poses, right, are a beautiful elixir to help rehabilitate your body and bring your body back into a state of neutral, allowing for your spine to slowly, over time, come back into its natural state, not putting so much stress and pressure on the muscles that support the spine, especially of the low back. So hopefully through this 45-minute little sequence, you'll find some relief. So to get started, you'll need a few blankets. So I know that you may be at home and not in a studio and have access to tools, but you can get creative. So grab 3 blankets, 3 towels, beach towels, a pillow, and if you have yoga blocks, grab 2 yoga blocks. But you can get creative and use pillows and towels. So the first pose that we'll get started in is relaxation pose. And to set your environment, if you're in your living room or your bedroom, you want to dim the lights, light a little candle, maybe some incense, just to the whole feeling that you are wanting to create is a feeling of softness, a relaxing, peaceful space. So if there's bright lights or loud music, maybe find a space that's a little quieter. So we'll get started. So relaxation pose, you'll need a blanket. So I'll be referring to the folds of the blanket as well. So this is a single folded blanket. We'll take a single folded blanket and we'll fold it in half, like a half a sandwich. And then all of the parts that will be kind of the ridges of your blanket, you can face that toward you. And I'll tell you why in a second. And then you'll take another blanket from a single fold and you'll roll it like you're rolling pastry dough until you have a nice little burrito. Okay, so for this first pose, you'll just allow for yourself to come onto a mat or onto your floor. And as you lay down, you're gonna wrap your legs over your first little blanket. Allow for the backs of the knees to be supported. And as you lay down, you'll wedge the second blanket right up to your shoulders. And kind of making space, moving around, especially taking notice of how you feel in the low back, okay? So if it doesn't feel comfortable in the low back, then you'll want to raise the height of your knees. So you can place something a little bit higher, maybe if you have a bolster, a pillow, kind of stuff that underneath the knees. And then play with the way that your legs are either internally or externally kind of rotating. If you feel tension in your hips, wave your toes in and out. Allow for your pinky toes to open evenly and just noticing maybe one leg is pulling more, maybe one leg is opening more easily than the other leg. Just giving the body permission to not hold, which we do all day long. And then find a place for your hands to release by your side. So there's no tension, no holding. And with this blanket underneath your head, since it's most likely just you, there's this beautiful little nest that you can create to support your head. So with these folds, right, I'm finding where I folded my blanket in half. I'm gonna fold that in and create a little nest for my neck, which is really, really supportive physically and energetically. And I'm going to do that to both folds. It's really nice when somebody wraps your head for you, but we can do it ourselves. And then as you extend your palms, just noticing if there's any last bits of you still holding on. And we'll take 5 breaths to encourage yourself to continue to release physical and mental tension. Inhale through the nose. Open mouth, exhale, release. Slowing down the intake of the breath. Inhale through the nose. Open mouth, exhale, release. 3 more times. Feeling the tissues of your belly soften. Open mouth, exhale. One more time. Inhale, soft belly. Feel the space around the ribs expand. The space around the chest lift. Find a pause. Open mouth, exhale, release. Scan from the back of your skull, your head is heavy, to the backs of your shoulders, through your arms, through your palms. Beginning to feel the natural curvature of your spine and the heaviness of your hips, and the energy that may be awakening in your legs as you release the holding of your quadriceps, your knees, your calves, your ankles, the soles of your feet and toes light. And continuing to just notice the body unhinging, unbinding, setting itself down. And in these poses, so we'll think of each restorative pose as a container. And within this container, you're holding space for all of your body systems to naturally realign, to come back into their state of function, taking the stress off of them. And when we allow for our systems to recalibrate and center and come back into balance, then we release the body from stressing so much, being in fight or flight. So in these containers, we move from a state of doing, reactivity, the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, into the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. Receive, just be. So you can set a timer for each pose. So this will be about 5 minutes, or I will gently awaken you, and we'll shift from container to container, state to state. And if you're finding it difficult to relax the mind, I promise you I'm not going to talk through all of these poses, just the first one, easing you into. Use your breath as your focal point, just watching the inhale, watch the exhale. If you have a meditative practice, you can use a tool or just watching, letting yourself be the inhalation, finding the slight pause, be the exhalation, just watching the breath, slow it down. As we use this pose as our doorway into a more healing, restorative state of being, of mind. Begin to very gently awaken from your toes to your fingertips, just enough to be able to shape-shift into the next pose. Take any little movements that feel good to you. And just staying in a soft state of being. Arms can come closer to the body. And come up to a seat. The heels can walk in to transition mindfully. Scooch onto your hip and to the side of your hip, folding to the right or left. As you come into side line, you can stack your shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. Use your bicep below as a pillow. Use your palm above in front of your navel and just feel the weight of your head heavy. Again, bones sinking. Set them down. Stay here as long as you need, and on an inhale, you'll use your palm to press into the earth to rise up nice and slow. And we'll shape shift into simple supported back bend. So for this pose, you may need to play with the pillow that will be underneath your back. So with a pillow or a couple blankets underneath your back. So we'll remove this blanket for now. Keep the blanket for the head space. And then grab your pillow of choice. Right, so this is rather bulky. If you have something maybe like a round pillow, something a little flatter, we're going to place the pillow underneath the low back and keep your feet flat on the mat. So when you feel your feet ground, just supporting yourself into this pose, you're going to slowly, you can come onto your forearms, right? So if you are in a state of feeling stressed in the low back muscles, just ease yourself, engage your core as you move. Find a little moment on your forearms to relax, release for a moment, and then easing yourself into extension in your spine. So I'm going to kind of allow for my pelvis to slide naturally forward, allow for myself to find the arc in my spine, and then grabbing my blanket, sliding it underneath the head. So if that's really high, I'm going to grab a block. So you can either recreate your nest or grab something that's a little bit higher, mindful of the tilt of your neck, chin in toward your throat. So with your middle thoracic spine and upper spine being in a back bend, we want to be really mindful of what's happening in the low spine. So if I create some traction and just pull my hips toward my heels, hug the heels toward you, lower the pelvis back down, and just paying attention to how that feels, maybe doing that a few times until you feel your body give you the green light to relax and let go. If you're finding it difficult to hold the legs at any point during these 5 minutes, we're going to set our timer for 5 minutes. We can heel toe open and draw the toes in, heels out, knees touch, broken bridge variation, which may be a little bit less stressful on the joints if you feel any holding in the hips. And the palms can rest on the body, or if we want a little bit more of an opening, let the fingertips reach for the earth, backs of the palms heavy. If that's too much awakening in the chest, we're paying attention to how the body responds to each container. And with container, I just mean shape or pose. So if you think of this posture holding you instead of you holding the posture, right? So in an asana, in a vinyasa or hatha class, right, you're holding the pose. So we want to think of the pose holding you. So as you unfold your body and feel your feet stamp, feel the whole footprint of your foot, feel your hips heavy, feel your back of your spine and blades sinking into your pillows or your bolster, feel the back of your head really heavy, the back of your palms heavy. Take 5 initial breaths to settle into the pose. Inhale through the nose. Open mouth, exhale. Or through the nose. Three more. Just notice where you're holding, where there's tension. And just think of these open mouth breaths as if you're peeling away layers, holding in the mind, holding in the body, pulling the strings of holding. And again, set yourself down, let yourself be contained in this cocoon, in your little cave. And just checking in, letting the breath be natural, flowing in, flowing out with ease through the nose. right? And it's totally normal for the body to not want to set itself down, to be holding. So keep scanning through, especially in this posture, through the shoulders and the wrist and the hands and the neck, through the spine. Slowly begin to shape shift. You're letting your legs wave a little bit from side to side. Roll out your wrist. Begin to fold your hands in. Nice. Walk your biceps closer to you, elbows by your side. You're going to press in, and you can slowly draw the chin in to press up, or shift to your hip, roll over to your side, using your body, supporting your head. Take a nice little stretch on your side and slowly press up. So elevated twist with a bolster will be our next posture. So if you're timing yourself at home, you can put your timer on for like 5 minutes each pose for this restorative series. Sometimes you can hold postures, any of these restorative poses, anywhere from 3 to 20 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on what the intention is. We're just giving you a little taste of each pose. Kind of choose what your favorite flavor is. So we're going to work with the bolster once again. So I'm going to prop my hips this time up onto the bolster. And again, my bolster is kind of high, so if you have a pillow that's a little lower, it'll probably work a little bit better, especially if you're feeling any sensitivity in your back. So I'm going to use 2 blankets underneath my head since I'm a little bit higher. And as I set my space up, you do the same. So you're setting your space up so that you have a pillow or 2 blankets, and I've just taken my single folded blanket, voila, double folded, and we'll twist to the right first. So I'll be twisting away from you first. And as you come into this pose, you're going to keep your hips, and you'll need 3 blankets, right? So we'll be using all 3, 2 underneath your head, 1 in between your legs eventually. So I'm going to take, again, my double folded little half sandwich, and that's going to go in between your knees and ankles. And if you have lots of pillows, you can use another pillow in between your knees and your ankles. And slowly, as I lay onto the bolster, I'm going to find a place where the shoulders are on the mat. Walk your toes in. Allow for yourself to feel supported, so you could feel maybe a little extension. There's a bit of extension happening in the back. I'm going to use my feet to scooch onto the right hip. Let your hips fall to the right. So as your hips fall to the right, I'm going to get situated so my spine comes back to the center, and then allow for myself to open into my twist. As you let yourself soften, 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 eventually the body will find its own place. I'm going to allow for my heels to open up in alignment with the knees, so it looks like I'm sitting on a chair sideways. Taking the blanket in between the knees and the ankles to support. If this is too much in the left shoulder, then you can allow for yourself to just stay on your side. So if it feels more comfortable to be on the side, then just fold fully onto your right shoulder. Let your shoulders, hips, and knees stack. Find a comfortable fold to your legs. And let the bolster support the pelvis and the low back. All right, so take a couple more breaths, deciding which variation feels the best to you. And we'll set our timer for 5 minutes. And as you ease into your shape, take 5 breaths. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale. Exhale. And really, as many breaths as you need to breathe through whatever it is that's coming up for you. So these containers can also act as a mirror, and a mirror that shows you where you're uncomfortable, where there's reoccurring patterning in the body, in the mind. And just recognizing if the body is ever feeling any discomfort, allow for yourself to shapeshift. These containers should be really comfortable, supported. Find a little bit of movement and stay in your peaceful state. And slowly come to the other side. So start to roll mindfully onto your back. Scoot your hips underneath you. Make any adjustments. So take notice if you felt like the pillows were too high or too low. There should be no strain on the back at all. Holding the pillow or blanket in between your knees and ankles, you're going to shift to the other side. And as we shift to the other side, noticing if it feels better. So option one would be to just stay on the side. So now we're on the left side of the body. Primarily, we're on the left hip, on the back of the left shoulder. The left legs are lying on the mat. So you can scooch the knees up a little bit. Scooch the heels forward. Relax your feet. Relax your knees and hips from holding. Working your way up through the spine. Notice how that feels. If you want to slowly open up, we're going to slowly see what it feels like to begin to set the right shoulder down, making adjustments in the spine, using core awareness to notice if that feels supported. You can always slide another part of your household underneath your shoulder if it's floating. Right, so I should have said that on the other side, that if when you come into the twist, right, so on this side it would be my right shoulder, on the other side it was my left shoulder. If it's floating, we want to make sure that we slide something underneath the back of the shoulder in the arm so the joint's not holding. Right? So the whole point of all of these poses is to fully be able to surrender into them, within that container be held, not to be holding. So take a few moments to shape shift, feel the back of the skull heavy, back of your shoulders heavy. So you're either opening through your chest or folded. So you choose. Soft breathing. Notice if you are holding the breath or if you are trying to consciously yogically breathe and you're using maybe a breathing technique. Maybe try to release and just breathe your natural breath. Notice how that feels in the body. And we'll be here for 5 minutes. Slowly begin to come into your body. Those are a little timer. So as you allow for yourself to awaken a little bit, again, we'll shape shift. So if you're on your side and you're still open, you're going to start to fold the right arm in. Take a moment, let everything be heavy. On an inhale, use your right palm to press, or left palm to press into the mat. And we'll shape shift. Just kind of take notice at this point how you're feeling. If you're feeling calm or groggy or sleepy or a little more at ease. So it's a difficult thing to do, asking your body to do nothing. So this next pose we're coming into is supported child's pose. So just for the sake of making my shin bones a little more comfortable on this hard floor, I'm gonna grab a blanket, slide it underneath. So my main tool is going to be my bolster. And then if I have pillows, blocks, all of that can be used to find an angle that feels really good on the low back. So we're going to be gently stretching the muscles of the low spine and anything else that we can grab a hold of. So I'm going to use one block to lift the bolster up. So maybe you're able to come all the way onto the bolster without any lift. And just notice the angle of your knees to your hips, that's comfortable in the hips, coming down onto the forearms. So because we don't want to be face planted down, not so comfortably breathing, we'll allow for ourselves to turn cheek to cheek. And I'm using my forearms to kind of press back a little bit. So I settle the weight of my hips all the way back. So if you're here and your hips are finding there's tightness wherever there is in the body that's not allowing for the hips to drop back, you can always take another blanket or a pillow, a squishy pillow, slide it underneath you, fill in that gap. So when I keep referring to all of these postures as a container, we want to be held. So we don't want things to be floating and straining. So if the hips are lifted, what's holding? So we want to make sure that we can fill in all of those little pockets as much as possible, creating a really comfortable container, supported container. So fill in the gap between your hips and your heels, or your hamstrings and your calves. Allow for yourself to find an angle, knees are wide. Elevate your bolster, grab a couple pillows, grab a blanket, place that on top, just getting creative with what we have. And again, so if you're really high up and you need support, you can place blankets underneath you, anything that you have to catch your arms. And then as you settle into this pose, noticing where you're holding. So you want to feel long line of energy in your low back. Hips are heavy on your heels. Your forearms are relaxed. Your hands and your wrists are relaxed. Your shoulders are broadening, kind of folding, sliding off of your back a little bit. And then notice if there's any tilt in your pelvis. Just relaxing the hips heavy. And then just take a moment to visualize the muscles of your low back. Sending healing, softening energy to that space. No holding, no stress, no strain. And as we've entered each pose with a few open mouth breaths, if that feels good to you, continue to do that upon entry. Just using this to signal to the body and to the brain to release holding, controlling, doing. And we'll be here for 5 minutes. So halfway through I'll give you a little heads up so you can switch your head direction. Slowly press into your forearms a little bit. Switch your gaze to the opposite cheek. So flip your cheeks, settle in, halfway there. Begin to awaken. Slowly, gently find some energy in the fingertips. Maybe press into the forearms and kind of release the neck a little bit, or forehead into the bolster, rock it a little side to side, whatever feels good. And you use your palms to press up. Like little mini sleeps. Last pose. So a really wonderful restorative client of mine, who was my client for a couple years, named this posture Instant Maui, and I used to live on Maui, so I really love this one. So we're going to take our head blanket and just keeping it energetically interesting, we'll flip to the back space of the mat. So we're going to use our big bolster and our 2 blocks. And you can get creative as we build. So I like to think of that there's a teacher that I had many, many years ago in Chicago said there's 3 types of yogis: the architect, the artist, and the athlete. And so whenever I'm building these restorative poses, I always think of being an architect, which is kind of fun. Okay, so you're gonna sit. Your legs are going to go up over this. So I would say lay down first and then flip your legs up and over. But before we do that, just to get really creative, I would add maybe a little arm support here. So we're going to take the blanket and we're going to unfold it into a single fold. And then I'm going to fold this flat in 3. Okay? Like so. Doesn't have to be perfect. Do the same thing on the other side. So we can go half or 3. Beach towels are really, really great for this. You don't have to have all kinds of fancy yoga tools. You can just use what you have around your house. Okay, so you're going to scooch to the middle, lay down. It's really no graceful way. And then you're going to flop your calves up and over. This should be stable and pretty high. So you can see I have this on the highest level of my block. And then again, I want to encourage no holding. So a lot of times we think we're relaxing and we're holding. So I'm going to wave my legs in and out to feel the hip flexors let go and my glutes let go. Calves are nice and squishy. Lift and lower the pelvis to feel my low back. Feels like it has some space. And then I'm going to use these little guys. I'm going to wedge it underneath the back of my shoulder and lay my arm down. Being so kind and loving to yourself in this practice, which is really nice. It's kind of like tucking yourself in for a little nap. And then again, so if you have your blanket half folded and you have the folded edges toward your shoulders, you can find where it's folded in half and then fold that in. So I'm just creating a little nest around my head, fold the second layer in, and then all the way around the head. This is usually people's favorite part of the whole restorative class, which is pretty funny. All right, and then allow for yourself, palms up, palms down. You be the guide. Just any tension, relax, drop in. So the body by now is understanding what we're trying to do. And usually we are expecting our systems to function at a pretty high degree. And within those expectations of expecting for our systems to work and overwork, right, we really don't allow, except for when we sleep, we don't really allow for our systems to recalibrate. So this practice is allowing for all of your bodily systems to take a little time out. And in this moment, you're aiding the full support of allowing for your systems to rest, to digest, to slow down, and to recalibrate their function. And as you enter into the pose fully, take a few breaths, your few entry breaths, just re-softening into your being, into your mind. So in the physical container, there's also the mental, spiritual container, and just recognizing how you're holding space in your mind, energetically, mentally, releasing your to-dos, letting yourself just be. And we'll be here for 5 more minutes. Allow for yourself to stay here as long as you would like, as long as you need. Or slowly begin to flutter your toes or roll out your ankles. Give your calves a little massage. Same thing, fingertips, wrists. I'm going to step the feet up onto the bolster. Feel your back get really heavy. So even just this is really nice, decompressing the lower back. And then eventually you can pull your knees in. Find some stillness and a little hug, or maybe a little rock, rolling heavy into the kidneys. And then we'll fold onto our side once again into side lying or fetal. Stack your shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles. Set everything down. And just recognizing that each of these containers allowed for your body systems to come back into balance. It's so much work to do all day. We put so much stress and strain on our systems that this practice really allows for us to aid the highest level of functioning for all of our systems, right? So if something's kind of stuck and needs a restart, needs to be given, our systems need to be given the opportunity to rest. And in this fast-moving, fast-paced culture, we're not the best at doing that. So a practice of this sort is so incredibly beneficial and can be really difficult to be still for so long. So it doesn't have to be every pose or a 45-minute or a 60-minute practice, right? It can be 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 20 minutes. So finding a few of these postures that feel good and that allow for you to create a fully supported container to contain all that you are, to bring your body systems back into balance in that moment, which is the beauty of it. And so if you've pressed up to a seat, elevate, find one of the objects around you to take a seat on. And as you elevate, feel the way that your body feels, all the little shifts that have taken place in the physical body start there, and then in the mind space. And with immense gratitude for all of the blessings in your life, draw your palms to your heart center and bow inward to your inner wisdom, to the guide that's always within you. So you usually know what you need to do. It's just sometimes difficult to just do it. So I hope, with the intention of this practice being to release some back pain, some discomfort, some stress in the back, the muscles of the back, that you have found some ease. And from my heart to yours, many blessings on this journey. Come back and visit. Namaste. Have a really beautiful rest of your day, wherever you are in your day. I'm Gabrielle at Trilogy Sanctuary. Thank you.